Grew up working 3 jobs to pay my own way. My parents trick me into a $500,000 mortgage. I take them down with their own fraud tape. I'm Alex. I'm 29. And if someone had told me 5 years ago that I'd end up in court being sued by my own parents for $500,000, I would have laughed. Back then, we were what I thought was a tight-knit family. We had Sunday dinners. My mom still sent me birthday cards filled with cheesy jokes. When I moved out, my dad handed me his old toolbox. All the typical family stuff, but somewhere between my sister's ambitions and my parents' distorted view of family responsibility, things completely fell apart. I never saw it coming. It started when my younger sister Leia turned 25. She's always had this princess vibe, the kind of person who talks like everything she says is a command, even if you're not sure until she gives you that look. Since college, she's drifted from job to job, never sticking around long enough to decide if any of them actually fit. One week, she was starting a bakery. The next, she was into interior design. Then came her crystal phase. She claimed she needed a tranquil space to realign her energy. That was how she explained to my parents she wanted to move out, not into an apartment, but a house. A real house, with a backyard and space for manifestation. I thought she was kidding. My parents didn't. They nodded, like it made perfect sense that someone with no income, no savings, and no clear direction was ready to own property. I dismissed it, figured maybe they'd help her rent something or co-sign a lease at most. But then, one night, I got a call from my mom. She sounded upbeat. "Come over for dinner next Saturday, we've got something important to talk about." That should have been the clue. In our family, when you're invited for a talk, the decision's already been made. I showed up with a bottle of wine, expecting a discussion about holiday plans or, worst case, some group chat about Leia's latest crystal craze. Instead, I walked into a dinner that looked like a party. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, wine already poured. Leia was glowing. My dad gestured to the seat next to him. "We have some great news," he said. My mom handed me an envelope. "We bought Leia a house." I blinked. "You what?" Leia grinned. "It's perfect. 3 bedrooms, a garden, and just 10 minutes from my yoga studio." It felt like the room had shifted, like they were speaking a language I didn't understand. These were the same parents who told me to take out loans for college because they believed in self-reliance. The same ones who made me work part-time through school to pay my way, and who refused to help with my first apartment because it was time to learn how to budget. And now, they bought Leia a house. But that wasn't the worst part. My mom folded her hands. "It's in both your names. Technically, the mortgage is under yours." My stomach dropped. Dad leaned in like he was sharing sound financial advice. "Your credit's solid. We thought it'd be a smart family investment." Leia's still working on improving hers. I pulled the papers out of the envelope. Mortgage documents, co-signer forms, legal contracts, all filled out, all ready for me to sign. "You want me to take out a mortgage for her?" I asked, voice cracking. Leia rolled her eyes. "It's not just for me. It's for all of us. Families support each other." I looked between them. My heart wasn't racing from anger, not yet, but from disbelief. Was this a prank? Was there a hidden camera? Why would I agree to this? I asked. Mom's smile faded. "Because family means making sacrifices, Alex. We've always stood by each other. You're in a place to help. It's just some paperwork." That phrase, "just paperwork," lit me up inside. Just a $500,000 loan tied to my name. Just putting my financial future on the line for someone who's never held a job longer than half a year. I placed the documents on the table. "I'm not signing anything." Leia looked offended. "Wow, so much for being the reliable one." Dad's voice hardened. The friendliness vanished. "You wouldn't be where you are without us. We raised you, gave you everything. All we're asking is a bit of support." I couldn't believe it. I had worked through college, built a stable career in tech, lived on a budget, paid off my loans early, all because they insisted I do it on my own. Now that I was financially steady, they wanted to saddle me with a $500,000 debt. I stood up. "No, I'm not doing this." The rest of the dinner was icy. Leia cried. Mom called me selfish. Dad mumbled something about disrespect and betrayal. I left before dessert. I thought that was it. I assumed they'd cool off, maybe find a way to rent the house out, or sell it. I stopped answering their calls. I needed space. Then I got a letter from a law firm. My parents were suing me. They claimed I'd agreed to help the family by co-signing the mortgage. When I backed out, they said they were left with damages. Namely, The $500,000 loan they'd taken out in my name. Somehow, they had already bought the house. I still don't fully understand how, but they used forged documents and an old power of attorney I'd signed in college to list me as a guarantor. Now, they were asking the court to make it official. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I sat on my bed, staring at the letter, reading it over and over. The day before, Leah had posted a selfie in her new kitchen with the caption, "Manifestation works. I hired a lawyer the next day." He wasn't the warm and fuzzy type, which I appreciated. He read the letter, leaned back and said, "You've got a real mess here." The legal battle dragged on for months. My credit took a hit. I had to freeze my accounts. I couldn't even apply for a mortgage for my own place. Family events became a minefield. At Easter, my mom cornered me and whispered, "You could end this whenever you want. Just do the right thing." I laughed in her face. It was either that or scream. Finally, the court date came. I wore my best suit. My lawyer had prepped me for every possible outcome, but nothing could prepare me to see my parents sitting across the courtroom behind their attorney, acting like they were the victims. The judge walked in, middle-aged, sharp eyes, all business. He flipped through the documents for what felt like forever. The silence was thick. Then he looked at my parents' lawyer and asked, "If the defendant never signed these forms, and you admit they were prepared before he saw them, what exactly is this case based on?" The lawyer froze, opened his mouth. No words came out, and right there something shifted. Not just in the courtroom, but in me. The judge turned to him again. "You're telling this court the defendant entered into a binding financial agreement without a valid signature, clear consent, or direct communication, and you want that enforced based on a conversation?" The lawyer fumbled. "We have statements, witnesses." The judge cut him off. "From whom?" The lawyer hesitated. "From the co-beneficiary, the sister who now lives in the house." He motioned toward Leah, sitting behind them in a pink blouse, reeking of perfume. She gave a small, awkward wave like it was a PTA meeting. The judge stared at her, then back at the lawyer. "Let me get this straight. You're asking me to enforce a $500,000 debt on someone who never signed, never agreed, and whose credit was used through a forged document. One tied to a decade-old limited power of attorney unrelated to this matter." My lawyer didn't say a word. He didn't need to. The judge kept going. "What I see here is a pattern of entitlement, poor decisions, and potentially fraudulent conduct. If I dig deeper, I may find grounds for criminal charges, not just dismissal." My mom turned pale. My dad finally shifted in his seat. Their lawyer raised a hand. "Your Honor, perhaps no," the judge snapped. "You've wasted this court's time with a baseless and frankly offensive case. Unless you can provide real proof in the next 5 minutes that this man accepted $500,000 of liability, I will rule right now." Their lawyer turned to them, looking furious. My mom whispered something, panicking. Dad just shook his head, still not getting it. In his mind, raising me meant owning part of me. They paid for my childhood, so they thought they were owed a share of my future. It was sickening. The judge stood. 5 minutes, then I'll rule. They huddled with their lawyer, whispering frantically. Leah just sat there, scrolling on her phone, saying nothing. No apology, no remorse, just waiting. Like none of this mattered. I didn't even feel anger toward her anymore. Just emptiness. My lawyer leaned over. "They're going to drop it. They know if this goes on, you'll have grounds to sue them." I didn't answer. I was still trying to understand how we got here. How my parents, who once packed my lunch, could try to destroy my life over their financial choices. All for Leah. Always for Leah. The judge returned. "Mr. and Mrs. Bradford, do you wish to proceed?" Their lawyer stood. "Your Honor, after reviewing the documents, the plaintiffs would like to withdraw the claim." The judge nodded. "So ordered." Case dismissed. I felt a weight lift that I hadn't even known I was carrying. My credit would heal. My finances would recover. But my relationship with my family? That was another story. As I got up to leave, my mother rushed toward me, grabbing my arm. "Alex, please. You don't understand the pressure we've been under." I gently pulled my arm back. "No, I understand completely," I said. "You didn't see a son, you saw a financial solution." She looked as if I'd struck her. My father said nothing. He just stared, like I was the one who had brought shame to the family by taking them to court. Behind them, Leah stood silently, her mouth opened slightly, maybe to apologize, maybe to explain. But I walked past her without a word. She didn't follow, That night, I sat in my small rented apartment, simple, nothing fancy, and let it all sink in. I didn't really have a family anymore. At least, not the kind that offered unconditional love. But what I did have now was better. I had freedom. I had peace. I had control over my own life. And tomorrow, I'd be making a phone call that would change everything for them. Because while the civil case was dismissed, my lawyer and I weren't done. The next morning, I woke up early, before sunrise. I hadn't slept much, but my mind was clearer than it had been in months. I could still hear echoes of the courtroom, the judge's firm tone, my mother's pleading, Leia's silence. But now there was no confusion, just clarity. I made coffee, sat at the small kitchen table, and opened my laptop. I still had all the documents, every forged form, every unauthorized transaction under my name. What they had done wasn't just betrayal, it was identity theft, mortgage fraud, bank fraud, and I wasn't going to let it go. I started drafting an email to my lawyer. Subject: next steps. I attached everything: mortgage papers, bank records, the outdated power of attorney they misused, screenshots of texts, notes from every call and conversation since it all began. Before I hit send, I hesitated. Was I really about to take this all the way? Then I remembered sitting in the bank weeks earlier, wondering why my credit report showed a mortgage I'd never applied for. I remembered the panic, the fear, the helplessness. I clicked send. Within an hour, my lawyer replied, "Let's talk today. We'll start with a police report and a complaint to the CFPB. If they want to escalate this, they picked the wrong target." I closed my laptop and leaned back. This wasn't about getting even, not entirely. It was about doing the right thing, about making sure they couldn't do this to anyone else. A week passed without much happening. My parents didn't reach out. Neither did Leia. A cousin mentioned they were keeping a low profile. Leia had even stopped posting her usual daily affirmations and backyard yoga photos. I hadn't told anyone what was coming yet. Then the call came. "Mr. Bradford?" said a calm voice. "This is Detective Moretti from the Financial Crimes Unit. We've reviewed the documents your attorney sent over. I have a few questions." He was direct but patient. Asked about when the documents were submitted, how my parents might have gotten access to my old records, and whether I had ever given verbal or written permission for the mortgage. I told him everything. He said, "This isn't going away. If this checks out, and so far it does, there may be felony charges. Just be ready for pushback." Pushback came 2 days later. My mom showed up at my apartment after work. She was standing by the door, wearing one of her nicer coats, holding a container of homemade soup like nothing had changed. "Hi, sweetheart," she said softly. I didn't respond. I walked past her, keys in hand. She followed behind. "Please, don't do this. Your father is stressed." Leia's beside herself. I unlocked the door but didn't open it. "You forged my name on a $500,000 mortgage." Her expression wavered. "We didn't forge anything, we just filled out the paperwork and submitted it." Without telling me, she looked around nervously, as if someone might be listening. "Leia needs help. She can't do this alone. You're the only one in the family who's made it. Are you really going to destroy your own family over this?" I looked her in the eyes. "You already destroyed it." Her face fell. She reached out like she wanted to hug me. I stepped back. "You sued me. You lied in court. You nearly wrecked my life. And now that you're under scrutiny, suddenly I'm your son again?" Her voice cracked. "We didn't think you'd take it this far." And that was it. That was the truth. They never thought I'd stand up for myself. I opened the door and said quietly, "Go home, Mom, and get a lawyer." Then I closed the door behind me. That night, Leia called. I hesitated before picking up. I needed to hear what she had to say. Her voice was small. "Can we talk?" No smugness, no spiritual jargon, just quiet. "I didn't know they used your old forms," she continued. "I thought you'd agreed, like, informally. You thought I agreed to take on a $500,000 mortgage and just didn't show up for the signing?" "I don't know, Alex," she snapped. "They said you were fine with it. I believed them. They're our parents." I let the silence sit for a moment. "That trust," I finally said, "is how they get away with it." She sighed. "They're panicking. I think they realize it's serious now. It was serious when they took me to court." She didn't answer. Eventually she asked, "Are you really pressing charges?" I didn't respond right away. I wanted to say yes, To tell her I was done being the dependable one they could quietly drain, that I wasn't their silent bank account anymore, but all I said was, I'm not playing along anymore, and I hung up. The truth was, this was just the start. My lawyer had just received something from the mortgage company, a signed affidavit, a name, a timestamp, and most importantly, a recorded phone call between my dad and the loan officer. That call changed everything. The next morning, I went to my lawyer's office. He handed me a printed transcript of the call, saying nothing, just watching my reaction. It was worse than I expected. My dad had called the mortgage company pretending to be me, lowered his voice, answered prep security questions, said things like, yes, I understand the risk. This is for my sister. We're doing it as a family favor. Then came the key moment, the loan officer asking, can you confirm, just for the record, that you are Alex Bradford? And my father responded, yes, this is Alex Bradford, identity theft. On tape? I gave the transcript back to my lawyer. That's it. He nodded. I've sent everything to the Financial Crimes Unit and the state attorney. They're moving forward. But just a warning, when subpoenas go out, things will get messy. I nodded. Good. Within 2 weeks, the bank began its internal fraud review. I received confirmation that my name would be removed from the mortgage, not out of goodwill, but because of a confirmed policy breach. The bank wanted no part of the mess. Then came the real fallout. While I was at work, I got another call. Alex, said Detective Moretti, we've issued arrest warrants for your parents. Your father is facing 2 counts of financial fraud and 1 count of identity theft. Your mother is charged as a co-conspirator for knowingly submitting false documents. I paused. They'll be released after processing, he added. But the DA is treating this seriously, especially with the call recording. It felt unreal. Later that night, my phone exploded with calls and texts. Extended family I hadn't spoken to in years, some furious, some shocked. One aunt cried on the phone asking, why would you do this to them? And all I could say was, I didn't do this to them. They did this to me. A few days later, I was served papers my parents were countersuing for defamation. My lawyer laughed. Let them. Every move they make just strengthens our case. The hearing for the criminal charges was scheduled for a month later. In the meantime, our family dynamic collapsed. Leah moved in with our aunt, saying she didn't feel safe in the house anymore. The mortgage went into default. The property entered pre-foreclosure. The yard, once full of crystals and affirmations, was now overgrown and neglected. The hearing day came. It was just an arraignment, not a trial, but I went anyway. My parents sat at the front with a new attorney. My dad looked smaller, less proud. My mom refused to look at me. When the judge read the charges, fraud, forgery, identity theft, I saw my dad flinch, barely. Their lawyer argued it was all a family misunderstanding, that my father had acted in good faith and believed he had my verbal consent. The judge wasn't convinced. The defendant impersonated his son on a recorded line. She said, that's not a misunderstanding. That's a crime. Bail was set. They weren't jailed, but the damage was done. After the hearing, I walked into the hallway. I heard footsteps behind me. Alex, my mother called, her voice trembling. Please, just talk to us. This has gone too far. I turned and looked at her. She was wearing the same gold necklace she always wore. Her eyes were red. She looked tired, older. You could have apologized, I said. At any point, you could have said, we messed up. We're sorry. And I might have listened. Tears welled up in her eyes. We thought we were doing what was best for the family. No, I replied. You were doing what was best for Leah. You always have. And the moment I said no, you made me the enemy. She looked down. We raised you, she whispered. We sacrificed so much. I paid my own way through college. I worked 3 jobs. I built my life without your help. And when I finally had something, you tried to take it. She had no reply. I don't hate you, I said quietly, but I can't forgive you. Not for this. Then I turned and walked away. She didn't follow. Weeks passed. Eventually, the house was repossessed and sold. Leah called it unfair, but no one listened. She moved in with a friend and started posting cryptic quotes online about letting go of toxic energy. I didn't respond. My parents avoided jail time by pleading down. They were given probation and ordered to pay restitution and legal fees. Their reputation took a hit. My dad resigned from a local nonprofit board. My mom stopped attending church. For me, I moved out of my small apartment and bought a modest home in the city. Nothing extravagant, but it was mine, fully mine. I didn't invite anyone to the housewarming. No family, no cousins, not even Leia. Just a few close friends, some takeout, and a quiet toast to a future I built on my own, and I've never felt lighter. The last message I received from my mom came months later. It said, "We miss you. Please come home for Thanksgiving. Let's start over." I stared at the screen for a long time, then I turned off my phone, and that was the day I truly moved on.